I spent a full week making the most cursed costume I have ever made. And somehow it still came out kind of cute. Or maybe that's just me, I don't know. Hello, I'm Miss Twisted. You can call me Charlotte. I do crafting, costumes, and other weird and whimsical stuff. And I want to make an abomination. I don't know exactly how else to describe it, but stay with me here and I'll try and explain. I've had a great time making some really whimsical, cute costumes lately, but for this one, I really wanted to lean hard into like weird, niche, unsettling, creepy vibes. Inspired kind of by these soft but unsettling dolls and illustrations. Something about these is so cool to me, like the way they look so otherworldly with these multiple eyes and ears, both celestial and demonic, if that makes sense. And so here we are, about to make a thing that I can only really describe with like a string of buzzwords longer than an Etsy listing. Cosmic folk horror, starflesh, mutant, rabbit, goat, deer, hybrid with hand antlers. Look, just trust the process with me here, guys, or at least trust the fever dream that exists in my head right now. Okay, folks, I'm gonna give myself a bit of a head start for this project, pun definitely intended, by using this head base from the creator Mainface. And I gave myself even more of a head start by ordering a pre-made version of this 3D model. Even though I have a 3D printer, it was busy the entire start of this project, which we'll get to in a moment with that. Okay, step one, I think I need to attach these jaw hinges. I'm just trying to work out which hole I should put them in. Don't take that out of context. Having no idea what I'm doing and not looking anything up to research it like I probably should have, I'm just gonna start tying the hinge on with elastic. In case you're new here, my primary strategy for every project is go around and find out. I instantly realized I'm not gonna be able to move the jaw without an extra piece under the jaw here to sit against my chin. This is just EVA foam with some wobbler around it, and I'm just heating it up and pressing it into place in that mask so that my chin can control that movement. Okay, so like it's sitting fine, but the problem is that like it keeps getting stuck out like this because the hinges aren't like perfectly straight up and down, so the hinges keep getting stuck. Ditching the jaw hinges, plan B, I'm trying some springs and these jaw spacers also by Mainface. Somehow these were like too short, but the holes were too big. I don't know, I cut this off and went to plan C. Okay, first off, everyone please take a minute to admire my incredibly ugly sweater. If you have seen an uglier sweater, tell me about it in the comments. I feel like there's some significance here that I'm not getting, like who is this old fisherman fellow? Anyway, this is where we are at. I've got these little spaces in here, which I've basically sort of mucked around with from a base model, credit up here somewhere, and added some bits into and then stretched out and then done a couple of different trial runs to get to this. And by the time I got to this, I've used up all the actual elastic, so I've tied it on with literally just bits of a stretch, like knit fabric, and for some reason that, plus like an extra little tiny bit of elastic right there, for some reason puts it in exactly the right place. So that works. I don't know how or why this particular combination worked after all the trial and error I did, but it does, so I'm not touching it. The antlers are gonna be the star of the show because for that, we are using hands. I feel like I should explain why hand antlers, but I don't have an answer. I just thought it would look really cool and very creepy, and I'm surprised that it hasn't really been done that much before. Like I found a whole 2 examples when I was looking for inspiration images. So this is what my printer has been doing for the last couple of days, just non-stop printing a bunch of hands. I also cut a couple of fingers to do separately. I figured that would just be like some extra branches of the antlers. Once all of my hands and fingers were printed and like glued together the various bits, I'm just gonna super glue a bunch of fake nails onto the top here, and these are all just like leftover nails from various packets. So there was a lot of variety here, and with some of the hot pink, it was kind of like body horror meets girly pop. I did consider sculpting or casting my own hands. Last time I tried that was kind of messy, like very literally. So the vision here is to kind of use the hands as like the branches of antlers somehow, so I'm gonna have to mount them on some base antlers. Before I got stuck into the antlers, I did take a second to shove a ton of EVA foam around the eye sockets and over the top of the head so that it actually like stays on my head. Next, I'm gonna trace out some PVC pipes and just like get a giant hole through this mask. Quick tip, this is not how you do this, but all of the actual power tools were packed up because I'm about to move house. Luckily, I still had a hacksaw, so I've cut some slits into one end of this piece of PVC pipe. And while wearing a respirator in a ventilated space, I'm hitting this with a heat gun so that I can shove one end into this hole. Do not take that out of context. Then while the PVC pipe is still soft from the heat, I can bend those pieces back where I've cut those slits to lock it in place on this side here. Let's chuck a hole straight through there so we can put in some nuts and bolts to hold that all in place. With the nuts and bolts reinforcing these bits, those antlers are not going anywhere. They are so secure. With no thoughts or logic, just vibes, I'm gonna cut out a wedge of this PVC pipe and just sort of wedge one of the hands into that to hold it in place. And yes, I'm literally using hot glue to get this secured. I feel like this shouldn't have worked, but it did, so I'm not going to question it. The second set is going on the top and a couple of extra fingers at the front just to make it extra creepy. Well, this is looking absolutely terrifying. I am so happy with that. God damn, that's creepy. All right, I've got some work to do, basically like filling out the space around the antlers to try and make it a nice smooth transition instead of ugly PVC pipe and then globs of hot glue. And for that, I'm going to use foam clay because it's light and I don't really want to add any more weight to this thing. There's already a fair bit going on here. I'm a little worried about that, but yeah. And I'm not super fussed about making the foam clay perfect. I mean, the 3D prints have not even been sanded. I am being that lazy with it. This whole thing is like a week-long experiment, so I'm not that fussed about it being perfect. I gave this a full day to dry the foam clay out before I started adding some priming layers here. I think I used about 6 or 7 layers of primer on this one and letting it dry fully between each layer before I applied a white base coat. Okay, base layers definitely helped blend everything together. It looks pretty decent from like this angle. Up close, you can definitely start to see all of that like lumpiness still showing through. Realistically, if I was doing this properly, I would do a lot more smoothing down and sanding and priming just to like make everything a bit more polished. But this was only ever supposed to be like a fun, silly thing, and I don't feel like doing that. So we're gonna skip straight on to doing like some painting on this, and basically, I just want a bunch of like red and pink like tones to this whole thing. And for that, I'm going to break out the airbrush. I have a love-hate relationship with airbrushes. I just can't seem to get the hang of them, but I think I really want those smooth lines that you can only really get with this thing. So apologies in advance for the very not great paint job I'm about to do. In a rare moment of foresight for me, I did at least test things out on the back of the antlers rather than going straight for the front, just to get the hang of things. I'm trying to sort of do the very base and tips of the fingers and all of the lines to sort of accentuate the veininess of the fingers. Is that the right word? Veininess? I don't know, trying to go between all of the tendons to make these fingers look extra skeletal and wayfish. Is wayfish a word? Believe it or not, this was the tipping point in the project where I thought this might actually work because it really started to look like the vision I had in my head. Disaster struck on the second pass over though. I dropped my airbrush and ever since it wasn't quite working right, I had to like hold the needle slightly out. I swear I cleaned and troubleshooted like crazy. I have never once used the airbrush and have everything run smoothly with no issues. Not ever once. I don't know what it is about airbrushes and me that don't get along. Anyway, I'm gonna soak this thing in alcohol, clean the whole thing out, cry about it, and hope that it works. Good morning, my loves. First off, I've decided this video is where I'm showing off all of my silliest jumpers, so please admire my little frill neck lizard jumper. Anyway, I have put this out to dry overnight with a couple of coats of like varnish on top to try and protect that paintwork. I'm pretty happy with it. I debated going like more crazy on the painting and going for more like a deep red as opposed to that sort of pink, but I think I like it like that. We're going for like soft horror, if that makes sense. I don't know, I just made that up. I guess it's because I'm going for unsettling and not gory. I also made some teeth. I probably don't need this many, and I didn't film it because it's literally just bits of foam clay that you roll into a cone shape, and that's it. And it was white foam clay, so I didn't have to do anything. I have actually put like a sort of flesh colored wash over these to get them to a more natural teeth color. It probably just looks straight up white in the video, so just trust the process with me here. Okay, I'm gonna finish this giant mug of instant coffee and then we're gonna stick some eyes in this thing. Despite me only having a week to work on this project, which means a lot of cutting corners and like cheat methods, I wanted to try something a little ambitious for the eyes. There's two primary ingredients for this little experiment. One of them is this, which is literally a clear plastic Christmas bauble that comes apart into two halves. The other one is UV resin. We're drawing some goat pupils onto some paper that I'm sticking over a smaller bauble, and I happen to have found the perfect little light that fits underneath that bauble. After seeing how much the light goes through that pupil, I'm sticking an extra bit of foam under here and then hot gluing this light into that bauble. Now we get to go even more crazy with the hot glue, just gluing stripes up and down towards that pupil. My goal here is to replicate that cool texture and pattern of irises. I changed my mind about the red pupil, so I'm painting it back in with some black. For the iris though, I wanted to use some transparent alcohol inks just because I did want to make sure that the glow from the light can still shine through. But I did go back over with a metallic white paint just to highlight some of those ridges of the iris. Here's where things get experimental. I'm putting some UV resin over this eye and letting it cure in the sun. Then I'm filling one of my larger baubles with that UV resin, recoating the original eye, and then putting that original eye into the larger bauble, basically so that all of the space and air in that bauble is now filled with resin, and then curing it outside again. So while this did work, there's some weird stuff going on. For starters, you can see that there's a bubble like right where the eyeball is. I think that is because I let it set like this and then I turned it up like this for a long time. And I think maybe some bubbles that were still in there like rose to the top in some of the uncured resin on the bottom here. And then you've got like this weird yellow tinge that everything's gotten. And I don't mind that on the actual iris where it kind of creates like more of a peach tone. But the eyeball itself, like the what's it called? The pupil, has definitely got more of that like brownie color, which I'm not a fan of. So I reckon I'm going to try that again, but I've got a couple of ideas on how to change that. Okay, round 2 of eyeballs ready to rumble. This time I'm spraying them with a clear gloss, and there's still some reaction where the pink is going a little bit peachy, but not too bad. Okay, I think I have a slightly better game plan this time. All plastic container. I have a plastic shot glass that I'm just using to kind of like elevate it above so that if I have drips off, they're not going to go like onto the bottom here. But this is all just like blue tack together, and I'm gonna basically hold my iris section, pour a bunch of resin over this, and then put it into there, and then take that outside to blast it with the UV rays of the sun. And the main reason I'm putting it on here first is to try and prevent bubbles when I start to do this and like scooch it into here. Because I had that bit of resin already hardened, it stops it from falling all the way in, and then I can just fill up the rest of that. I can kind of get a peek in here and make sure that there aren't any big bubbles. Something Dark Souls joke about praise the sun. Okay, that was embarrassing. I got a delivery driver literally as I was outside holding the eyeball up to the sun like Rafiki. So I don't know what he thought I was doing, but he'll remember that. So round 2, definitely an improvement. There's like a little bit of peachy tone, but not that much. There is like a little bit of a reflective like flat bubble over the pupil. I don't mind that too much. The pair of big eyes, complete disaster. Like there's so many bubbles that have formed in this, even though they haven't really been up, and they did not look like that when I took them out to cure. In fact, I actually like my original ones more, and even though there's that weird yellow coloring, if you turn like the light on with these, you can't really tell that much that there's like the bubbles in there. And I really do like how these ones look with the lights on too. So I actually think that these ones are going to be my go-to. I'm going to ditch these ones as like, you know, it's trial and error. There's going to be some error. Okay, back to my head base. I have cut a very sketchy hole in the middle of the forehead where I'm going to put the third eye. Well, I suppose it's technically the first eye. Okay, right now we have like some giant eye sockets here, even though the eyes themselves are like a lot smaller, because I need to be able to fit the actual eyes in here and then also have space for my normal eyes to see through. So I think traditionally there's like a special kind of mesh you can get for fursuit eyes. I don't know if this is exactly what they use, but I just bought some like cross stitch material. This is literally like the sort of papery fabric that they put cross stitch on. And I will say the vision through this is terrible. Like I can barely see anything. I don't know if I do this, can I get that to focus? See how you can like almost see me? That's what my vision looks like through this. I don't know if I can, oh! Don't break it. I'm gonna put this down over here. Okay, first off, back to good old reliable hot glue to just secure this eyeball in place. And I've got some like stretchy minky fabric that I'm going to use as eyelids around either side. The main eyes are going to be these eyeballs hot glued into the mesh that I've cut out in the shape of the eye socket. So that white minky fabric I mentioned, this one's got a slight stretch to it and is quite thin and drapey. If I fold over one edge like this, I can basically use this piece as an eyelid. I switched from hot glue to fabric because I didn't want the hot glue to leave any like 3D lumps under this and keep it nice and smooth against the eye. Side note, any fursuit makers that happen to be watching this, please tell me any tips and tricks or critiques you have for this, because I am gonna have to do more of this kind of project in future. I need all the help I can get. Securing these pieces into place with a hot glue, I think you can definitely start to see the vision. Pun definitely intended. Well, with the eyes in, it's definitely looking more terrifying, and the horrific unhinged jaw thing I've got going on, that's because I need to make a duct tape pattern of this entire head to get some fur on here. And I don't remember where, but I think I read somewhere that you need to do duct tape patterns with like the jaw open so that you've got some extra fur here to allow that movement. So duct tape pattern, you start to cover everything with cling wrap as best you can. Okay, cling wrap on, time for some duct tape, except I always use fragile tape. Why? Because, long story short, I bought way too much of this stuff years ago and have been trying to use it up ever since. The point of a duct tape pattern is to create like a perfect shell of your piece, including all of the curves and weird shapes. That's why with a complex shape like this, I'm using these really small pieces to make sure I'm preserving those curves. After several years, I'd almost run out of fragile tape, but a couple of you guys gave me some more at recent conventions, so thank you guys so much for that. I guess I'm using fragile tape for the rest of time. So after getting at least half of this head covered, I can start cutting it off along certain lines where those seams are going to be. With all of these pieces, I can trace them onto some faux fur to get my pattern pieces. Cutting faux fur really sucks because you have to be careful not to cut into too much of the fur pile itself, like the hair. Though admittedly, this is not going to be as much of an issue for the pieces around the front of the face because I'm going to shave all of those down to nice short fur. Now, because this is a lazy, quick experimental project, I'm not going to do any sewing here. I'm just going to start gluing this onto the mask. Just for the sake of experimenting, I tried gluing a couple of pieces on while the fur was still long. This did not help and was of no benefit whatsoever. It just made it really hard to see where the seams were lining up. Not to mention harder to get the clippers into some of those gaps. I still left long some of the pieces towards the edge of the face because I'm not going to shave the whole thing off there. Now, I have to confess here, in one of my most feral crafting moments, I did try and hot glue together the seams at the side of the head with the fur, and hot gluing seams together is almost one of the 7 deadly sins of cosplay. I don't know what the others are, but I can guarantee you I've committed all 7. It's time for a side quest into some ears. I'm going to start off with some white craft foam, goddamn. Anyway, I've got 4 of these, the normal amount of ears, and I'm going to be folding these over in a little bit, but first, I need to get some fur on these. I am going to glue this piece straight down onto that fur, cut off the excess and leave just a little bit here that I can like glue around the edge. Doing the same on the top edge, and then I'm going to glue and fold this ear into place. And that's kind of it. Ears are pretty easy compared to the rest. Now, because I'm gluing these ears in right on the side where the fur is still quite long, I'm making sure to separate out that fur to make sure I'm sticking it as close to the base as possible. Honestly, I really should have just sewn these bits in, but I was being lazy. With my side quest complete, it's time to keep furring this one, including the forehead where I've stuck an extra little gemstone because, I don't know, why not? Feral crafting aside for a moment, I did do a proper ladder stitch to attach the side mouthpieces just because they are going to be taking a fair bit more movement. The jaw pieces in the back of the head were those last little steps before this whole thing is covered. One final pass of the clippers over the cheeks, jaw and forehead because those are the areas where it's going to start short and get long towards the edges, so I kind of had to figure out exactly where that was going to be. I swear, the bits of fluff and white fur got on everything. everything on every shirt and like pants and jumper I was wearing over the last couple of days. All the tables and walls and floors, it's just sticking to everything. Next time I make something that involves using faux fur, and sadly I do have a project coming up that's going to involve a lot more of it, I swear I'm just going to buy like a hazmat suit or anything. Seriously, fursuit people, tell me in the comments some tips on how to deal with this because I don't think I can deal with that again. Anywho, this is where we are at. She's actually looking pretty damn good. I've shaved down a fair bit like around the face and left it long and shaggy around the outside. I think it's slightly less creepy and slightly more cute with the shagginess. Like, it kind of makes me think of Falcor, but I love a good design that combines creepy with cute, so I'm not mad about it. As lovely as she looks all white, I'm gonna add in a little bit of pink around like the nose and the ears, and so I'm gonna try and pull out my airbrush again and see if we have any more luck. I managed to brute force my way to using this thing, but we're still getting the same issues where there's bubbling coming out the top, which makes me think that the seal's broken somewhere, plus the needle getting stuck again, so I think something's been bent or broken when I dropped it. Like I said, still managed to mostly use it. It was just incredibly uneven because I couldn't really control the flow. So everything's a little lumpy if you look at it too close. With the smooth plastic on the eyeballs, it meant that I could really just go crazy around the eyes and then wipe off the eyeballs later. Okay, I might have gone a bit overboard with the airbrushing around the eye. Like, it just kind of looks like it's just been through surgery or something. Like, it's a little bit much. I don't mind too much that I'm going to have to fix that because after trying this on, I have discovered I cannot see anything through that mesh. So I think I'm going to have to give up on it and replace it with some tulle. So yeah. Trying to minimize how much I have to redo, I've cut off the mesh and faux fur just around that front corner of the eye. I found if I layer 4 pieces of tulle up next to each other, it's still pretty opaque with some better vision. So that's my game plan. Cutting out the shape I need and gluing along the edges, I'm literally just gonna like stick this over the existing eye. A few more strips of faux fur around the edges to hide those seams, and it's looking good as new. At this stage, I didn't trust myself to get a good smooth result out of the airbrush while something in there is not quite working, so I'm finishing off with some powder makeup. Not entirely sure how well this will last, but you know what, that's future Charlotte's problem. Now, I did buy some white eyelashes to try out for this thing, but I don't know, gut instinct just told me these were not quite working. I don't know why. Maybe you can let me know in the comments. Do you think I should add them back in? Okay, so if I'm ditching the eyelashes, I think the only thing left that I really have to do is teeth. And I've got these ones I painted up earlier, and to be honest, I was looking at them in the mouth and I'm not sure I want to go with teeth either, because I think like it starts to look like a vampire bunny. I don't know, something about the teeth doesn't quite fit the rest of the vibe that I'm going for, if that makes sense. I started doing a quick trial run just to make sure and instantly changed my mind. I think if I put them deeper into the mouth and leave them looking a bit smaller and more subtle, everything works much better. Very last step, a little bit of pink fabric into the bottom of the jaw here, and I think the head might be done. Alright folks, I think we're in the end game here. Like, I'm incredibly... God damn. Sorry, I saw it in the camera, and sometimes you can't see the woods for the trees when you're like working on a project for a certain amount of time, but like when you can see it like this, you can kind of picture the whole thing together, and I'm so happy. I can't believe I made this in a week. All right, reining myself in for a moment. There are a couple more things I need to do before I can put it on and do a grand reveal. Firstly, I made some very cursed hands for this very cursed head. We've got soupy stretchy nylon, super stretchy. Add some tearaway stabilizer, and I'm gonna just trace my hand onto the stabilizer. For the second hand though, we're going a little bit more creepypasta vibes. I'm only doing long fingers on one hand because I like to have one that is still mostly functional. I'm gonna skip over the making of the gloves from here because I've made these a gazillion times, and there are definitely better tutorials out there you guys can follow. The different part comes in with that long fingered glove. For that, I've got some white warbler I'm gonna heat up and wrap around a pencil. This is just to shape it into essentially the end of a finger. I'm aiming for loosely a cone sort of shape that's just gonna sit on my fingertip and extend them. Sculpting a little bit of a curve on the end and cutting a little place for it to sit over the top of my existing nail. And that piece is gonna hold the shape inside these extended gloves. From the top, it still looks a little Dr. Seuss, but curl the hand up and it's giving Slender Man. Finishing off with some airbrushing and some of the worst camera work I have ever done. I don't know how I so entirely missed like actually focusing on my hand for this. Not to mention how comically useless the little scrap of fabric was at actually protecting my poor desk from more paint stains. Luckily, this paint seems to wipe right off. As one final step with the airbrush out, I'm running it along the edge of one of my white skirts, just to bring some of that pinky red tone onto the outfit itself. For the rest of the outfit, I'm not making it from scratch, but I do have this idea in my head of those sort of really lacy doll-like elements, so I just have like a ton of ruffled shirts and skirts. Oh, holy cow, you guys, there's like a big flock of like black cockatoos outside. I'm not even sure if I can show you guys. Okay, I think I missed the moment, but like, that's those guys. They're really rare, really cool birds, all right? Okay, friends, I am dressed like a haunted Victorian doll to take this thing for a test drive. So let's give it a try. Oh guys, it is so warm in here. For someone with a lot of sensory issues, I do keep making the most uncomfortable costumes known to man. So I can only really see like outlines of the footage, so I don't know if this looks actually good or not. I'm gonna find out later when I review the footage and can actually see better. From the vague silhouette that I can see on the camera display, it looks pretty damn good. I know I'm being a perfectionist, but I wish I'd brushed or even hairsprayed the fur to make it a little neater, but the disheveled look kind of makes it look more haunted, I guess. This one is my eyes, so let's give this a go. How's that? Guys, that is so cool! Look at that! Alright, so like I'm getting some light coming in because the window blind isn't fully down. Now you get the glow on the bottom with the white, but you still get the eyes like fully glowing. Ah, that's so cool! I've got one more thing to try that I put in and didn't tell you guys about. Alright, this room is not big enough for like full length though, so let's take this into the hallway. I took it outside for a moment just to get that natural lighting, and I love how different the vibe is when you're outside and the sunlight is way less creepy, but I like that you can do both with this outfit. So, let's wrap up this weird fever dream of a project. Firstly, as you might have guessed, this was supposed to be a Halloween project and it just got pushed back because of a bunch of stuff like burnout and sickness and other commitments. Secondly, I don't really expect this video to do very well in the whole algorithm thing. It's a little bit weird and offbeat. Honestly, it's more of a passion project for me, but if you've watched it all the way through, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you being here. And I hope you still enjoyed me trying something a little bit different. I'd really like to know your thoughts, good or bad, about this one. Seriously, I crave feedback all the time, or criticism, so please leave some below in the comments. A huge thank you to my ultimate supporters. These are my top people on Patreon: Artemis, Residual Images, Mohican Creates, Robert Mischief, Michael, Verilyn, and Yuri. You guys are my ride or die. I am so grateful for you always. Thank you also to these other amazing Patreon members who are on screen now. You should come and join us over on Patreon. out. I post previews, work in progress, and mini videos and projects that I don't post anywhere else. Like this one on Fizzaroli's hat, or this one on upgrading my vampire ball gown, or this one on some creepy neon demons I made. I even gave away the horns from that one to some lucky patrons. And joining is the best way to support me so I can keep doing ridiculous projects like this one. But if you are here liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, you are supporting me. So thank you guys very much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!